Good day, everyone. Here's our topic for today's session together with my group mates. We will discuss about the war of extinction in indigenous people here in Mindanao. War of extinction understand the structural discrimination. The structural discrimination is not about the individual hates or bias. It's about the equality and it's built into systems like laws, institutions, and everyday practices. It causes certain groups, such as the poor, minorities, and women, to be treated unfairly without anyone needing to say it out loud. This kind of discrimination is systemic and institutional. It's found in housing, where some communities and denied affordable homes, and also the education, where schools in poor areas get fewer resources. Justice, where minority groups faces harsher punishments. Employment, where wage gaps and biases like equal opportunities. Even if a policy looks neutral, the result is often unequal. That's how disparately continues even in a modern society. The impact, it keeps people in poverty, limits their chances in life, and creates deep division in society. So what we can do about this? We need to have a reform policies to be fair and inclusive. Educate people to recognize and challenge inequality. Ensure equal access to service like health, education, and jobs. Empower the communities and speak up and lead the change. For the conclusion, in short, ending structural discrimination means fixing the system, not just blaming individuals, but only then can we build a truly equal and just society.
Social science perspectives. So first is sociology. Sociology focuses on institutional racism and class division. So mao ni sila ang nagtuon kung unsay pamaagi ang institutional racism o pagbahin-bahin sa klase nga nagpadayon gihapon nga inequality. So next is economics. Economics examines unequal access to resources and opportunities. So mao ni siya ang dili patas sa pag-access sa mga resources o opportunities nga mao'y hinungdan sa inequality. Next is political science. Political science analyzes policies that disadvantage to the specific groups. So mao pa ni sila ang nag-analyze kung unsay pamaagi ang mga policy nga makadaot sa piho sa grupo nga mao kini ang nagpalala sa inequality. So, the key scholar like Joe Pagin, Patricia Hales Collins, and Perry Bourdieu have shaped perspectives. Their work highlights how societal structures perpetuate inequality.
Manifestations in society, education, unequal school funding, and curriculum bias. Indigenous communities in the Philippines face unequal school funding and curriculum bias, leading to low student performance, high dropout rates, and limited opportunities. The mainstream Philippines curriculum often marginalized indigenous knowledge and identity, exclusion of history, language and traditions, and loss of cultural identity. Despite efforts like IPED programs, implementation is uneven, leaving many underserved. Housing, redlining, and discriminatory leading practices. Indigenous people in the Philippines face systematic exclusion from development projects, land grabbing, forced displacement due to the redlining and discriminatory leading practices. They are often excluded from urban housing, from urban housing programs and face barriers in accessing housing loans and financial support, such as lack of formal land titles and lack of credit history and cultural discrimination. Employment, wage gaps, and limited career advancement. Indigenous people in the Philippines face wage gap and limited career advancement due to low paying, informal jobs, and limited opportunities. Factors contributing to these gaps including discrimination, lower educational attainment, and remote location. Even entering the formal workforce, indigenous people face barriers like stereotype, lack of professional network, and language barriers like glass ceiling. Criminal justice, racial profiling, and synthesis disparities. Indigenous peoples in the Philippines face racial profiling and synthesis disparities due to ethnic prejudice and stereotypes. They are unfairly targeted, accused of rebels, and subject to harassment and arrest. Additionally, indigenous individuals face harsher punishment due to lack of legal presentation, ignorance of their rights, and cultural barriers in court proceedings. Impact of marginalized group. Limited access. Restricted opportunities and resources. Indigenous peoples in the Philippines face limited access to education, healthcare, and basic service, leading to high poverty rates. Economic opportunities are restricted due to lack of access to markets, capital, and technology. Land conflicts and exclusion from mainstream programs. Despite the Indigenous People Rights Act, many IPs face discrimination, cultural marginalization, and limited legal recognition of their ancestral lands. Reduced mobility, stalled social and economic advancement. Indigenous people in the Philippines face immobility, economic barriers, and structural inequality. Reduced mobility, stalled social and economic advancement. Indigenous people in the Philippines face immobility, economic barriers, and structural inequality. They are trapped generous poverty due to limited access to education, healthcare, and cultural discrimination, and loss of ancestral lands. Economic barriers include lack of job, economic barriers include lack of job opportunities, lack of formal and land titles, and disruption of traditional livelihoods and structural inequalities such as underinvestment and limited environment presentation further hinders their progress. Psychological toll, emotional distress, and mental health challenges. Indigenous people in the Philippines face emotional distress due to displacement and discrimination and limited support. These suffer from fear, anxiety, and trauma due to losing their cultural identity and traditional way of life. Mental health challenges are limited due to stigma, language, and cultural differences. In intergenerational trauma from historical injustice such as colonization and cultural erasure can lead to low self-esteem and weakening community bonds. Cycle perpetuated ongoing poverty and inequality. Indigenous peoples in the Philippines face systematic poverty due to limited access to basic services and economic opportunities, such as education, healthcare, and clean water. Displacement from ancestral lands and discrimination in social system further perpetuate poverty. The cycle of poverty and equality continues, with children growing up without tools to break free from poverty and families remaining dependent on substance farming or informal jobs.
Realigning denials refers to discriminatory practice of denying loans to our services to residents of certain neighborhood, often based on race or ethnicity. This practice historically targeted minority communities, preventing them from accessing home ownership and building wealth. Second is appraisal bias. This refers undervaluing properties in minority communities compared to similar properties in predominantly white neighborhoods. This lowered the amount of money homeowners can borrow against their property, limiting their access to capital and hindering wealth building. The last is segregation. Housing segregation, the physical separation of different racial or ethnicity groups in residential areas, limit access to quality schools, jobs, and other resources that contribute to economic opportunity. This creates a cycle of poverty and disadvantage that is difficult to break. So, this discriminatory practice create a generational wealth gap and ongoing inequality, significantly hindering equity. Addressing housing discrimination requires tackling these three key areas to create more just and equitable housing system.
Good day everyone, I'll be the last presenter and I'll talk about how we can build a more equitable society. First, we need to dismantle barriers. Promote equal opportunity for all. That means removing unfair systems and giving everyone equal opportunities, no matter their background or status. Second, we need inclusive institutions. Create fair policies and systems. We should make sure that schools, governments, and workplaces are fair and treat everyone with respect. Fair rules help people feel safe and heard. Third, we must empower communities. This helps marginalized groups thrive. Let's support those who are often left behind. Helping marginalized groups give them a chance to grow, lead, and be part of positive change. In summary, an equitable society doesn't have happen overnight. It needs teamwork, understanding, and continuous action. But we all play our part, we can create a better, fair future for everyone. And that ends our presentation. Thank you so much for listening and we hope you learned something valuable today.